Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Leading Practices in PRME Community, Innovation in Curriculum and Pedagogies and Impact. And today we're looking at showcasing leading practices in our chapters, and this allows us to listen and learn from the work of other business schools. So sharing information goes to the heart of the PRME mission, which aims to foster collaboration on common aspirations and create collective impact. So we're considering different approaches to impactful and innovative pedagogies in business schools across a number of our chapters today, and we have some great speakers lined up for you today. So first of all, we have, I'll just list the speakers that we have today. We've got Peter Garn, Professional Associate Dean, Teaching and Learning, University of Melbourne, so welcome. Padma Kumar Na, Dean of LM Thapa School of Management. Benito Tahanki, PRME Chapter Asian Steering Committee Member, and Shihana Al-Matari, Assistant Dean of Business and Economics College of American University of Kuwait. And we have a number of guiding questions, but we're looking at challenges and innovative pedagogies to see how business schools can advance and share information about how we do things for a better world, advancing the mission of PRME. So today we'll kick off with Peter, who's from Melbourne, and he's presently in Melbourne. So we might kick off with Peter's presentation first. So we'll have 3 or 4 minutes of presentation from each of the speakers, and then we'll open up for a great discussion.
Great, thanks very much, Robert. It's great to be here. And in presenting today, I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners where I'm speaking from in Melbourne, Australia, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. It's a great opportunity to understand what different business schools are doing in this space. It's extremely important, it's prescient and pressing for us to think about these different sort of aspects of what we're doing. To give a quick context, the work that we're doing is obviously motivated through the PRME principles or inspired by them, as well as a broader university push to ensure that sustainability is integrated across many aspects of university life. And we've got a plan to 2030. We can't wait to 2050. That outlook is too far off. And certainly for our sort of brothers and sisters in the Pacific, sort of too pressing a problem for us to sort of deal with. And many aspects of that university plan really do with the disciplines that we're concerned with in a faculty of business and economics, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, not just the more immediate impact of climate change and climate resilience. So broader issues of sustainable, if you like, social ecosystems as well as environmental ones, looking at aspects of how our economy works, and how we ensure equality and sort of sustainability through justice in the broader economy, and looking at the way that investment sort of works. We've been spending a fair bit of time reinventing sort of the curricula within both our undergraduate and graduate programs, and as I said, integrating what we do across subjects and across disciplines. It sort of retains, if you like, sort of the core disciplinary rigor and focus that each of our disciplines brings to issues, but seeks to create for our students a dialogue across them with sustainability as a focal point. And the key initiative that I wanted to share today was really around a required introductory subject that we offer in the Bachelor of Commerce. In fact, it's the very first subject that our undergraduate students do. It's called Sustainable Commerce. And that subject, we operate as really a cross-disciplinary subject with sustainability as the core theme that runs across what we do. It's very much experiential in its focus, with problem-based cases at the heart of the way we teach and provide these different disciplinary perspectives from economics, accounting, finance, even actuarial studies, as well as management and operations, which are the core disciplines that we sort of offer within the Faculty of Business and Economics. Core to it as well is aspects of indigenizing the curriculum. as well as introducing sort of Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous ways of thinking about large problems that really help supplement what we do across those different disciplinary perspectives. So when I think about the sorts of Indigenous perspectives from an Australian viewpoint, aspects of stewardship, connection to land, kinship and obligation, and a different perspective on time and intergenerational responsibilities or outlook when we're looking at sort of economics and management of our natural environment and resources are fairly important. We offer this, as I said, as a compulsory first subject that all our students do. So we offer it at a large scale. So in first semester of the first year of the Commerce, we might have 1,500 students enrolled, and then with a mid-year intake, there might be another 500 to 700 students who come into the program. So it's very large, and we're producing, if you like, sort of, we have a pedagogical approach where we have a whole team of instructors operating, say, in a very large lecture theatre that hold sort of up to 500 students, and we offer it in a highly interactive way. So there's very little by way of traditional lecturing that takes place. It's more very driven by the case, the disciplinary sort of perspectives which we bring into focus across different weeks of the delivery of the subject. It's proved to be extremely successful. We've just completed the first delivery of that subject. Students love it. The teaching team are passionate about it. And we're finding ways in which we can innovate our broader curricula to deliver across our different sort of disciplines. So it's an exciting sort of a shift in the way we're doing, and it connects us back to the broader sustainability strategy that the university has that I spoke of earlier. I'll be very happy, I suppose, to talk in more detail about the subject or respond to questions, Robert, when we get to the question part of today.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you've outlined some innovations that I think not only speak to the Melbourne Business School, but I imagine many schools are thinking about this because of the external situation that's changing out there that's quite different even from 5 years ago. So yeah, interested to have a discussion with the other group as well. Okay, thanks, Peter. So I'd like to introduce Padmakar Na from India. Thank you very much, and we'll hear a short presentation from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, excellent. All right, I will start with some of the pedagogical challenges we are addressing. About 8 years back, we have introduced 3 credit hour courses for all our entering 200 plus MBA students. We call that sustainability in practice. So we were designing this, and we were initially getting some ideas about how we actually do this. We have identified interesting 5 pedagogical challenges. Sustainability is a wicked problem. It is transdisciplinary in nature. And especially, I have experience teaching in Europe, the US, and in India, especially in the US, and to some extent in India, this ideological divide, and that is also a major challenge when you are introducing the ideas of sustainability. Then cultural diversity in the classroom, and finally, curricular diversity. That means finance and business economics teachers would look at sustainability quite differently from how a HR, OB, or a strategy professor would look at it. So we have identified these 5 pedagogical challenges, and we started thinking about how do we actually address these challenges. And if you look at it, let me see. One of the most interesting tools we have started using is this idea of reframing. Reframing is a powerful tool. Psychologists and linguists have studied this quite a bit, but we have actually tried to practice this idea of reframing in our classroom. So we have reframing as a tool, introducing what we call physical science thinking, developing a social entrepreneurial transformational mindset, and also business design thinking. But reframing is useful throughout. If you pick any one of these 5 pedagogical challenges, reframing is quite powerful. I want to introduce the idea of reframing. We talked about sustainability is a wicked problem. Why is it a wicked problem? Because we rarely can come to a consensus definition of the problem, plurality of problem definitions, and diverse stakeholders. And therefore, we can never think about the solution. We can only think about the idea of getting into the journey of framing and reframing for finding a better solution. So this is the reframing framework we use. We just don't blindly reframe, but we kind of look at the history of the problem and can we see it differently? Resource requirements, can we see it differently? Stakeholders, outcome expectations. Of course, ideology is another one. So we relook at the problem through these lenses and reframe them. So I have a little quick example of reframing. This is in 2010. I was teaching sustainable business strategies at the University of Texas at Dallas. During that time, I got a call from a colleague. She said her son, 9-year-old son, is doing a school science project, and he was studying draining of cold water and hot water, and the procedure book says that hot water would drain faster than cold water, but he has actually found cold water draining faster than hot water. She could not, or her son could not explain that. Then I asked her, how did he actually do the experiment? He said, just to make sure that his mom's kitchen is not, he's not dirtying her kitchen. So he used a glass to capture water. What really happened was that hot water coming down heated the air in the cup below and exerted pressure, and that's why it slowed down. I started asking my colleagues and my students, can you explain this? And interestingly, no one could actually explain this. That was the time we started thinking. Business students typically have a good understanding of the socio-cultural, economic, and political environment of the business, but very little understanding of the business environment. Then the question was convincing our faculty colleagues. So one of the faculty meetings here in India, I asked this question: do you agree that we must teach material science to our MBA students, a bit of material science, so that they have a kind of a physical science lens to see the world? The answer was no. When we reframed the question, do you really think that our students should have a deeper understanding of the physical world around them? The answer was yes. One interesting example of reframing. We are also quite passionate about developing frameworks to deal with some of these pedagogical challenges. This is our own framework we call 6 diamonds or 6 lenses. It is ethics, economics, energy, expectancy, essential materials, and one I missed, environment. So these are the 6 lenses through which we see it, and we can discuss during the question and answer sessions. Last point is our sustainability in practice course is the only 2 3-credit hour courses in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Padma Kumar. And I think it's great to see that framework, the reframing framework. And I think many of us may have developed that ourselves organically, or we actually have that as a heuristic ourselves. But it's fantastic to see that so explicit. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. So thanks very much. Our next speaker as Benito, all the way from Manila.
Thank you, Robert. What I'd like to share are 6 practices that we've done because they form a sort of ecosystem of how we support social responsibility and sustainability in our business program. The first thing we realized was we needed to start at the very basic conceptual level. So we had to choose a basic management textbook that would really support multi-stakeholder thinking. And we were lucky because around that time, the book of Dick et al. Became available. Management, Current Practices, and New Directions. And it had a very explicit multi-stakeholder perspective. It veered away from focusing mainly on productivity and efficiency, although that was still there, but looked at the welfare of the different stakeholders. And then they revised this in 2019, which we also adopted. So this, for us, was a very fundamental move that we made. The next thing we did was to adopt a code of ethics. We realized that for most professions, they're called professionals because they have codes of ethics, but managers per se do not have codes of ethics. So that many students, when we ask them what's the purpose of business, they rush to say it's profit. So what we did was we pushed for a policy at the college level to adopt a code of ethics which would be taught to all business students about the purpose of business. This was, of course, inspired by similar initiatives among other prime signatories, but we made explicit certain commitments, such as products and services should serve human development, or they should be made accessible to the poor and underprivileged, and so on. So you can see that the management textbook and the code of ethics are complementary, although we achieved them 2 years apart. Later on, we realized that our students would often complain that many of the things we teach them cannot realistically happen in organizations because the business leadership in organizations do not support them. So we realized we had to partner with executives. And here we advocated with the Management Association of the Philippines. This is the leading organization of executives in the Philippines. And we advocated to adopt the Covenant for Shared Prosperity. Here we had a signing ceremony. Alfredo Pascual is the president of MAP. By the way, the incoming secretary of the Department of Trade under our new government. Brother Bernie is our president. Dean Sarial is here. And the covenant really just states 6 commitments to various stakeholders to take care of employees, to ensure product quality, and so on, to take care of the environment, and of course, to deliver results for shareholders. So the covenant, therefore, had a particular slant because we have a tremendous poverty problem in the Philippines. So the covenant was there to really make sure that businesses take care of everyone and not just concentrate wealth among the executives, which is what we tend to see in our country. And the covenant was integrated in all the syllabi along with the code of ethics. The other things we adopted was to give a sense of self-efficacy to our students that they can make a difference. We taught them action research. And in the MBA program, they're required to do a terminal project on action research. As an example, in action research, they construct a situation, meaning they jointly understand it, they plan action about it, they take action on it, and they evaluate their action. Of course, we were only able to do this because our MBA is a working student MBA. Here you have an example of one action research that our student did, because we're the leading country in call centers in the world, but we are also the leading sufferers of back pains and shoulder aches because of that. And so this student initiated change that will minimize those kinds of body pains because of call center work. We also instituted business simulation. And what we did was to use business simulation to encourage students to think of multiple goals when they plan and execute strategy. Here we have our example of a grading sheet: good products, providing jobs, training employees for competence, achieving returns. And here you see that the students get a kick out of using business simulators. And this is part of our gamification approach to pedagogy. And finally, we ask our students to make their advocacies known. We have a business column in the Manila Times. We call it Managing for Society. And we invite students to write columns. Here they can see right away that their views, once published, can be shared with their friends, can become viral, in fact, or open conversations online, so that they realize that advancing change in mindsets among business leaders is something we have to do together and to use all media available to achieve that goal. So I will end there, Robert. Those are the 6 things that we did in line with our prime goals. Thank you.
Fantastic. Really amazing things happening there. I think the code of ethics is something that jumped out at me, and I might ask you a question a little later about, it's almost like we've got a business, it's like a business case. How do we get this innovative initiative up and running? And it may be the relationships that we have with the people, and it's not just the idea that actually gets up. So there's probably some challenges around how you got that code of conduct up. Fantastic. Thanks very much, Benito. Our next speaker is Shahana from Kuwait.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd just like to start with, the challenges, and then I'll explain how we're trying to overcome them. As you know, AUK has been a recent member of PRIME. 2 years ago, we just handed in our first RIP report. From there on, we discovered that, we had no challenges embedding sustainability within the curriculum and the course content. I'm happy to say that almost all our faculty are passionate about it, but the challenge that we found is that everybody seems to have been working in silos. Is that besides being passionate about it, you were left to your own design, how you implement it and whether you implement it. And there was this idea that you upper management did recommend embedding sustainability, social governance, ethics within the courses, but there was no actual structure or strategy towards it. So that's something that we discovered when we were first reporting on our PRIME initiatives for our SIP report. So the first thing that we did was, build in the bases. So the first thing is that we have 6 program learning goals for our entire, College of Business and Economics. And so the second one was ethics. So under the ethics umbrella, the program learning goal, we wanted to incorporate, PRIME initiatives. And so this is something that we wanted all faculty to basically incorporate within their syllabi, to basically designate which type of assessments, which type of courses, what are the chapters that are more relevant with, this, or have been designed to implement this program learning goal. The second thing that we did was actually create a PRIME section within the annual report. So it wasn't, enough that we see this in the syllabi and the content. We wanted to actually see details about, what type of activities and what type of chapters or discussions that, the faculty did that, were relevant to PRIME in terms of these 3 pillars: sustainability, ethics, and social governance. So when the faculty actually see this as part of their annual reporting, they understand that, the management doesn't just encourage it, they also want to implement it. And one of the questions within that section is basically, asking the faculty themselves, did you have any issues towards embedding this? Why? It's because we want to follow up on this to understand why it wasn't implemented in the first place. What are the challenges so that we can, overcome them together? And the third one is actually, from the perspective of the student. This is the first time that AUK has ever run a survey asking the students about sustainability. So the first 2 things that we did was asking, from the perspective of the faculty. What are you doing? Are you facing issues? Can we see what type of content is it that is relevant to PRIME? And can you report on that? The third one is basically asking the students, is it true? Is it true that, these are the courses that you've seen sustainability or social governance or ethics embedded in it? What is your perspective? What's the perception of the students? I mean, are they being disseminated to the student? So these are, these first 3 things that we're trying to, overcome in terms of, instead of we operating in silos, we want to have a structure, we want to have a strategy, so that our second SIP report is basically creating these type of foundations and not just reporting for reporting's sake.
Fantastic. It's very challenging when trying to think about a systemic change across a curriculum, not just in an individual course. And we're thinking about how to embed principles and initiatives across programs. Always very challenging. So thank you very much for those insights. And if we could bring everyone together here, our next part of the session is where we pose a few questions. And the first question that we have, what are some of the challenges that PRME members face locally in building impactful pedagogies and curriculum? And I'll just hone this down a little bit more. What sort of insights can the speakers bring to the panel here in terms of how we might overcome the challenges for initiatives to get up in an institution? And I'm thinking, first thing that came to mind is a common element across all four speakers was there's potentially relationships, and how do you convince people that this is something that is worthwhile?
Let me take that, Robert. I'm glad you mentioned relationships, because that's what I had to learn the hard way early on. What I tried to do was to have a roadshow to present the prime principles and the need for a code of ethics, etc. But I wasn't gaining much traction. It was taking months and months. But I realized when I built my coalition among the people I really knew, and I would have coffee with them behind the scenes, and then we would jointly propose these initiatives together, I got more traction. I got more openness, because I realized people just had so much on their plates, and there was just so much inertia given the current way of doing things, that simply appealing to the reason or even appealing to the institutional mission was never quite enough. I had to build a coalition informally and use that as a leverage during my presentations. That really helped with that challenge.
Yeah, really interesting. I just might let other people just jump in here.
Yeah, no, I'm quite taken by that, Benita. That's I think an insight that I think we would say was the type of challenge we had to deal with in terms of the sustainability program and integration more broadly, as well as the introduction of this sustainable commerce subject I spoke of. We also did it in the pandemic, so there were a whole bunch of other issues attached to that because of everyone had pivoted to online learning. Everyone felt sort of, if you like, quite strung out by all of that and exhausted through the process. But the key was really finding your coalition and being able to sort of locate individuals working across disciplines who had an interest in this and some motivation to contribute to this initiative. We also found that while, obviously students were very passionate about for purpose type issues, for environmental concerns and sustainability, there was still quite a lot of variety in view about whether we should have this so compulsorily implanted into the curricula. So it's sort of taken some effort, if you like, to work with students to have them see the value in this. And I suppose the overlay in the subject is doing the sorts of things that I think Padma Kumar sort of spoke about with the core sort of challenges there. And for us, it was sort of framed around the idea of threshold concepts that were derived from some of the different disciplines. And so students sort of got buy-in through the fact that they were learning something about the core disciplines. It wasn't just about sustainability, but it truly was a bit of a bedrock for where they would go in their studies. So I think there was some interesting sort of connections there as well.
Yeah, really interesting. Does anyone else want to comment on that?
Can I just add something to the fact that isn't just, that we're operating, on separate fields. It's also that, I found out that there was some type of disconnect between, faculty, students, and also admin. So it was only by chance that I happened to be on campus services, and I was asking them for the SIP report, I was asking them about, what are we doing in terms of greening the campus? What are we doing in terms of, solar panels and all of that? And then I discovered just by chance that they have reports made, about all of these, and that they're working, actively towards greening the campus and doing these sustainability, but I didn't know about that. And I kept hearing things like, oh, we're working for the same goal and for the same objective, but we didn't know that the other person existed. So she's working in admin and I'm working in the College of Business. And that's the thing, that's what got me when I was writing the SIP report, is that we're working, away from each other, not knowing. And I guess that goes back to, upper management, sort of, there's no structure to it. There's no director, there's no committee, there's just people actively, passionately working for sustainability, but there's no group. And I guess we have to find that on our own, having, coffee with people and then meeting up and then talking about it and then forming our own coalition. But it's really, really hard.
Yeah, that's. I'll give a bit of a plug for Mete's project and a global PRME project here in terms of the SIP report and thinking about how that might be rearranged slightly. So there's movement there in terms of how it can be, instead of a backcasting approach, to a more forward thinking strategy and reporting. But anyway, there's more coming down the line about that, hopefully, in the future, because we're aware of that as well at that level, that we can actually help. So we can recast the SIP report as something more proactive. And just deepening this conversation just a little bit, Padma Kumar, I was taken by your reframing, and also one of those topics in there about the reframing. There was debate about what type of sustainability. So when we're talking about an initiative, we might say that there's the initiative of sustainability, but what is that type of sustainability? So was there any, what was it like to try and negotiate deeper and weak sustainability?
I want to make two little points quickly. See, our business school is near a beautiful city, but our business school is located in a place where there are 400 small and medium-sized, highly polluting industries. And to start with, we were quite disappointed with the fact that what are we doing here? This is not good for thousands of students. Ours is a small campus. This is the second campus of big university. So business school and a small computer science department is on that campus. So we started looking at it. This is not good for us. This is not good for us. That's where the idea of reframing actually came into our mind. So we completely reframed this, our worry, as it is not that this is not good for our 1,000 students. It is not good for the 20,000 villagers. Suddenly, everything changed. Just, you see, reframing, one of the dimensions is the stakeholders, who is affected. Initially, it was some 1,000 people. Now it is 20, 30,000 people. Everything changed. We started working with these companies. We started working with the Pollution Control Board. We started working with the villagers. So that's one idea. Second idea is we introduced this idea of reframing for developing interesting pedagogies for our sustainability in practice course, all action oriented. In fact, students think that because of this course, I got a good job. But the idea is not this. So this reframing has become part of our everyday life. And now all our colleagues, teachers or professional staff, now they know, even they use this idea of reframing when they have a difficult conversation. Now, this is part of our day-to-day. We make fun of it, but we kind of talk about it. You know, the biggest contribution of our push for sustainability of this reframing, even going home and negotiating with your children or your partners, you use reframing, and it is powerful. If some of you are interested, I can give you little presentations we have made about reframing. It's quite powerful.
So we're moving into a relationship management sort of session here, are we? Or just no, we'll stick with sustainability and pedagogy. But yeah, just jokes aside, I think, yeah, really interesting stuff in terms of how we actually approach not just thinking about what innovative pedagogy is, but how to actually implement, which I think is challenging for all of us. So in terms of, you know, Padma Kumar was saying about the external, is there any other presenters here that have had that sort of external thing motivate change? Because we're thinking about impact. We're doing this to have an impact, so there's a two-way flow here.
If I may, Robert, one of the things we worked on was to advocate with the Securities and Exchange Commission to change our corporate governance law. One of our advantages is that our Senate is just 2 kilometers from our campus. So it kind of helps us when we need to advocate certain policy changes. Because formerly, our Code of Corporate Governance emphasized stakeholders. This was back in 2002, fresh from the Enron, you know, debacles and all of that. But then in 2009, they kind of backpedaled and they removed stakeholders, so they just made it stockholders again. So we really, you know, petitioned them, and it took us 5 years. But finally, they relented, and now our Code of Corporate Governance is very much stakeholder-oriented again. And here we had to really get everybody on board to convince the Securities and Exchange Commission to do that. And we're quite happy, although it took 5 years.
That's really interesting. We had in Australia a similar thing with the Australian Stock Exchange talking about the code of conduct and where the social license should be the term in there. And it is not now. Some people think that's a good thing. Some people think that's not so good, and we've replaced it with reputation. But yeah, it's a very interesting debate there. Yeah. Anyone else want to talk about that external impact that helps us drive that pedagogical innovation?
Well, in some ways, like the whole sort of foundation for this subject, sustainable commerce, actually didn't come from, well, it partly did, but in some ways there were other drivers for thinking about this type of subject and this type of pedagogical approach. And it was reflecting, I suppose, a broader concern about the student experience and the extent to which students were engaging with the online or the on-campus sort of experience of learning, and how we might sort of bring them into these grand challenges or big sorts of issues. Now, in the end, it was us that chose sustainability as the key theme that we would use to drive this subject. And I suppose that brought with it enabled us to mobilise then a range of different sort of supports. We were also conscious of the fact that the university was putting together this broader sustainability strategy. So it was really leveraging those sorts of things. So here, it was finding new ways in which we were looking at engaging students in the learning journey and thinking about their transition from university into the world of work. And with a forward look, how would the sort of skills and the way we taught them those skills, as well as how to learn beyond the classroom, as an act of sustainability in itself. So that was, I think, an interesting part of our thinking and journey in designing the whole subject as well.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, because it is that two-way sort of understanding of what's out there and what the students are wanting, and that's a whole nother area. I was going to say in the opening this morning that the whole nature of knowledge production is turned on its head now with information technology and the depth of understanding that we have with students now in terms of sustainability. It's much higher than, say, 20, 30 years ago. It's much deeper knowledge because of that. So now we're coming down to the end here. We've got one more question I'd like to pose. We've got 1 minute each for it. The $1 million question in 1 minute. So the challenge is up here. What sort of what should business schools be doing to provide a context where students can further develop their responsible management mindset and skills? So the question is, what should business schools be doing? And we've got 1 minute. We've got 5 minutes left in the
Shall I start?
Session. The last person, I'll put my hand up when you've got 1 minute. It's expired, so I'm the timer. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So this is a difficult question. There are so many ways of looking at it. What do? Part of our business school's mission is a crazy one. We educate globally sensitive, excellence-seeking management professionals with a social entrepreneurial mindset. The 4 pillars: global sensitivity, excellence-seeking, true professionalism, and social entrepreneurial mindset. I want to start with social entrepreneurial mindset. It's not to make them social entrepreneurs, but to develop a mindset that what is good for the corporation should be good for the country and the world at large. That the second pillar, the important one here, is this excellence-seeking mindset. It's not about reaching a quality standard. It's get into the mindset of doing it better than before. What we are trying to do is we are connecting sustainability to that excellence-seeking. Excellence-seeking can be about pedagogy, can be about sustainability, can be about corporate connect, can be about anything. So connecting it to excellence-seeking and sustainability. Thank you.
Fantastic. Shihana, if we can go to you next.
Okay, so here's the thing. We embed sustainability in everything, from our clubs to working with, multi-stakeholders, to incorporating, topics, entrepreneurship, like social entrepreneurship. We have special topics that have focus on sustainability, such as the environmental and natural resource economics class. We have, discussions on social responsible investment in finance, but I think, and we organize strips, to these multi-stakeholders in order to take them away from the classroom and into an actual setting where, the student doesn't come to me and say, that's not the real world. But I feel like that's not enough. I mean, I do honestly feel like, we have to give more autonomy and agency to the student. And this is why in AUK we're trying to create the first green office in the region, which is an initiative backed by students organizing for sustainability. It's an NGO backed by UNESCO. And this is basically giving the students autonomy to create their green office as part of admin, where they themselves, are the ones responsible and are recognized for creating and implementing this awareness for sustainability and ethics within the entire institution, and not just within the classroom itself. This is where I feel like give them autonomy and recognize them for it, and tell them that you're the owner of this, not just the institution.
Fantastic. And Benito.
I think the duty of the business school is to provide an ecosystem, an environment that becomes a model for the students as to what they're working for. Because the students pick up from the hidden curriculum more than from the formal curriculum, I think. Because if we keep saying sustainability or socially responsible management, but they don't treat their employees well, or they put their trash everywhere, the students know this. So I think if the leadership and all the networks of administrators can just be very conscious that we are really showing students what can be, and then we engage them in co-building that ecosystem, I think that will have really lasting impact. And we've seen this when graduates go to their companies, they say, this is how we do it. I'd like to share this with you, because they had direct, concrete experience of these things. So that's what I would think be helpful for business schools.
Fantastic. Thanks for the insights. Peter.
Thanks, Benita. Thanks, everybody. I think it's been a fantastic discussion, and I think some of these last points sort of connect things well together. And building on those, I agree. I think sort of it's almost like sort of the old adage, think globally, act locally, and I think this sort of helps a lot. It's one thing for us as the academy to sort of advocate for sustainability, but if our faculty, if our institution is in fact not walking the talk, then there's a disconnect. And our students are savvy; they will see through that. So it's a complete sort of process where we need to sort of, in effect, as an organisation, as an institution, change a lot of what we do as we walk down this sort of path. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, thanks. And I do think that walk the talk is vital. I think the co-production is vital as well. The relationships, and also actually having a plan for reframing. So thank you very much. Our time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights. It was a fascinating session, and I've taken away a fair bit, and that I'll take back to our institution as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's right.